initially thought we were going to talk just about music when I first reached out to you, but after learning about all the other work that you're doing in the world, and then like your history, I didn't even know you were in tech. I mean, makes sense. You're in
Many
California.
moons ago.
Yeah, but I thought that was very interesting and very cool. And then, lots of work with activism, and that's just not musically necessarily, but another way of using your voice. So I guess there is this
Mm.
theme around using the voice. So I was wondering if you could
Mhm.
start with your story from the beginning, if you
Sure.
want to.
Wow, sure. Well, before I came to this planet, Avatar was my homeland, and it seemed like there were some issues happening down here that you and I both wanted to sign up for to assist and serve. I'm joking, but I'm serious as well.
Yeah, yeah.
Uh, from a young age, music and vocal activation has been an interwoven part of my story, to literally my birth story. The umbilical cord was tied around my neck as a child. Um, I believe, did we share that piece of uh,
We did not, but that
lineage?
also happened to me. Yeah.
That no, yeah, that's I remember you saying that was part of your birth story as well.
Oh, okay. I really don't think I said that. I think you just intuitively just received. I don't remember saying that. Maybe I
Well,
did.
okay, maybe it was intuitive hit then.
Yeah.
Yeah, later when I was educated on the value of our birth story and that being a revelation piece, sometimes of pieces of our dharma or our path, it all started to
Mm.
click into place, as
Wow.
to why so many themes in my life have been tied back to voice, freedom of expression, expansion of the vocal chakra, because it was such a limited capacity when I was first born. And so in this incarnation, having full range of my voice, my breath, my throat, and speaking my truth has been an integral part of my journey. And so for anyone listening who wants to get tuned in more on path and purpose and, vocation, dharma, check into your birth story. There might be some interesting clues there that will connect some dots for you.
Hmm.
Yeah. But, from a young age of like 4 or 5, my father would play the keyboard in the house. He was a Baptist reverend, so he had a lot of like gospel church music playing in the house, and he would play along, and I would sing with that and just felt very alive singing from a young age. And I felt very lucky to have that experience and know viscerally, like, oh, this is joy for me. This makes me come alive. This is something I could do endlessly. There's no time limit where I feel complete with it. I could do it forever. And I was in my first talent show at 5 years old and singing choirs. I was in musical theater, and was also encouraged by both my mother and father, who highly prioritized education and critical thinking, to think for myself and to ask questions and to be curious. And so a big part of the vocal piece also was, questioning what the status quo was and not just taking things at face value. And this came back to like bite them in the ass a little bit when I was like, I don't understand the purpose of college, like going in debt to get a job I don't want so I can pay off the debt that I didn't want in the first place. I'm like, these systems don't make sense.
Hmm.
Like so many of our generation, right? Like
Yeah.
this doesn't seem to track with a realistic like life plan. But that questioning of authority I think is so important. uh, that brought me to a space of traveling the path that was expected of me, go to college, get a business degree, and get like a real job. So check, check, and check. And once I hit kind of like the highest sales quota selling tech learning training software in San Francisco, I remember placing a call to my dad. Oh, Dad, like I hit it. Like I was the top in my region. Really excited, obviously. And he's like, okay, that's great. So, when you plan out like the next 20 years, like if you can make one of these every 2 to 3 months, you'll really set yourself up. And he's talking, and it was one of those like the room like caved in, and I'm thinking about the next 20 years of my life. Like,
Yeah.
wait, this is just my life. I can't do this. I don't feel alive. I feel like a very replaceable cog in a big wheel that my soul is not fulfilled doing this. I'm meeting all of the societal marks. I'm also drinking a lot more than I would. I'm buying more expensive clothes and taking taxis everywhere and finding more ways to spend the money that I'm making. And so I feel like I'm really stuck in this hamster wheel. And on the day of Steve Jobs' death, it was 2011, I take a break at lunch and walk by the Apple store in San Francisco on Market Street. And there are Post-its all over the glass windows of the store with people that had left notes of how much they appreciated Steve Jobs and Apple. Like, you inspired me to start my own business with thank you for your contributions. And
Wow.
Steve Jobs as an individual has a complicated narrative, according to different people you talk to, specifically people who have worked for him. But it's undeniable that him following the genius seed in his soul had a ripple effect that
Yeah.
impacted millions of lives for the better, unleashing their own creative genius, giving them tools to create in ways that they had never dreamed before. And when I saw this display of love and appreciation, and I walked back to my cubicle, it just really put everything into perspective. Like, am I living the true expression of the seed of why I'm here? Is what I'm doing going to serve people in a meaningful way that's going to create a ripple to create other leaders or other artists or the creatives? And I just kept getting hit with a very strong, intuitive no. And so that same day, I put in my 2 weeks with my boss and committed to a path that felt more in integrity and alignment with my soul, which had always been music as part of it, and also speaking my truth and being aligned with organizations and people and missions that felt like they were serving the world that I wanted to see emerge. And this was in
Wow.
2012, and I really haven't looked back. Every step forward has been one that integrates my artistry and, working with incredibly inspiring people and ones that I would stand arm in arm with as this new paradigm emerges, and have deep bows for the souls that I've met on the journey after choosing my truth. Your vibe attracts your tribe. So it's been really cool.
Yeah.
So I think
What a
that brings us
meaningful
to this
moment.
moment and meeting you
Yes.
and being on this podcast and being able to have conversations like this and interact with your amazing soul who's, changing the game for so many people in ways that feel really necessary and needed.
Yeah. I'm glad to hear that. That makes me happy because I also feel like what am I doing here? What is my mission? How am I serving humanity? And retreats have been such a transformational piece in my journey. So I think the world should have more of it and more people should get involved.
Yes.
I want to go back to what you said about the post-its on the wall because that gave me goosebumps and that was
Mm.
just like Wow. What did you feel in that moment? Like what was calling you? Did you hear something
Mm.
tell you like this is what you're meant to be doing and you immediately knew, okay, what I need to shift
Mm.
to?
Well, it's funny. I'm gonna get emotional, just like I did in that time. But you know, that phenomenon when there's like totems in your life where like you see it and you like know you're on the right track. Or there's like some people have hummingbirds, some people have certain flowers. It's just this almost this like wink from the universe, like you're on path. Um, for me, it has always been like prism, like rainbow light somehow be coming through or reflected, or I'll see a billboard and it's in a moment where my current state of awareness and appreciation for my life is like very high and very open. And it feels like this reinforcing visual. And so walking by the Apple store, I, before I even knew what was on the post-its or what was happening, there was just this like multicolored tapestry of squares. And so seeing that was like, wow, okay, this is again this like spectrum, rainbow light spectrum that is affirming you're on path, you're on track, keep going. You may not know where these next steps are going to take you, and that's okay. Just walk the one that's in front of you right now, right here.
Mhm. So what did it tell what message did you receive in that moment?
Mm, you know, truth bump, seeing people gathered in a sort of like vigil like setting. And the message, it paired with a Steve Jobs quote that I um, saw when I got back to my office, in the vein of your heart and your intuition already know what you want to do. Um, and it felt like, Nina, you've known and you still know what your path of highest service and highest expression is. Stop turning your back. Stop thinking that you can go wrong by choosing. It's okay to choose what your highest excitement and the space that lights you up in ways to serve is. It's okay to choose that. And by comparison, look what happens when this man chose that. What a gift. You get
Yeah.
to choose yours too.
You made me think of have you ever heard of Bashar?
Yeah.
Yeah? The
Oh my
channel, well, he is
gosh.
the
I'm
I
like, I'm
think I
already visioning,
learned
like, please interview him one day. I already, like, I would love to
oh my
have
God,
you.
I would love to do that. Bashar, if you're
Yes.
watching, well, up there somewhere. Anyway, I was listening
Bashar.
to one of his transmissions
Mhm.
and he was saying that everything that you're looking for finds you when you align in every moment, you align to the thing that brings you the most excitement. Like if in the moment, the most exciting thing for you is to pick up the phone and call a friend, do that. If in the moment, the most
Mm.
exciting thing for you is to pick up the guitar and just start singing or dancing or whatever it is, in every given moment, choose the thing that gives you the most excitement because that's when you are maintaining that high vibration and you are moving closer toward the thing that you really want. And it seems so
Oh.
simple, but when I heard that, I was like, wow, imagine if I did that. Because a lot of times we rationalize or we try to, like what's logical, what's the responsible route. And those things are important too. But
Mhm.
I never start to think of, let me choose the most exciting thing for me.
As like the starting point. It's like if I get down my list of responsibilities and things I should do, maybe there's enough room for the exciting thing at the end of the day. Maybe not. And yeah, I agree. It feels so backwards. And I love it, using that as like a compass.
Yeah. But then it's hard because you've denied yourself for so long. Or, if you're one of those people that have denied themselves for so long, when it comes time to like choose what you want, it's like, oh, what do I want?
Right. And Don Miguel Ruiz would say like the mass domestication of humanity, or, desensitization. There's so many factors generationally that have taken us away from our like intuitive, soulful knowing, strategically, when we're
Mm.
when we're deeply connected and rooted with who we are, we're unstoppable forces. And yeah, we get to return to that by any means necessary. That's our
Mm.
lifeline to a better world for sure.
So how did you make your return to music?
Hmm. Well, that was the first step, that day of Steve Jobs passing, and a deep commitment. You know, sometimes, oftentimes, when circumstances start to feel too, it's like the anais nin, when the risk it took to bloom became less risky than staying inside of a cage. Like you have to expand. And so I was feeling like literal weight on me, figurative weight, like just a depressive mindset. So choosing my highest excitement and returning to my love for music felt so good that it made the life that I was living feel obsolete in a sense. It's like an obvious choice. And then logistically, I'm living in San Francisco at the time. So I was looking around at like, okay, how do I not exist in a system that is going to turn me into somebody else? And I started knocking on doors of different modeling agencies there, and signed on with an agency that really helped subsist my living costs for a few years while I went out to open mics and met people of the music community in Berkeley and San Francisco, and subsequently met one of my greatest music mentors and dear friend, Steve Knight, who was part of a Oakland band, Flipside, and took me in for my first recording session. It got me versed in like recording music and writing my own music. Up until that, I just point I'd only sung other people's songs. And yeah, again, just pulling the thread of that excitement and putting myself in uncomfortable environments, performing at open mics and going to like meetups and going to drum circles in the park, and just whatever would come across my field. It was just a big season of yes, and a reclaiming of the love that I'd had for music for so long, and then finding community members that shared that love and letting the dots magically, synchronistically connect from there.
Well, that sounds fascinating. Just all how you can move from one space completely different into another,
Mm.
and just that's really that's really beautiful to witness, to just see someone really choosing themselves and showing up like that.
Mm.
And the determination to make it happen, finding the right people, I think is also really important.
Yeah.
So what came first after that? Was it the vocal activation, or was it the soul jam, or was it something else
Mm.
before that?
Mm. Yeah, vocal activation and soul jam really came in with my LA chapter. When I stopped working at my job in 2011, and made this commitment to my artistry and like the truth of my path, I stayed in San Francisco until 2018. And so from 2011 to 2018, it was really finding these music community members. I recorded 3 projects up there, and really just got versed in performing and singing and writing. And so that was the time to like pour into the little artist in me that had gotten put on the shelf for a while and revive her. And I was part of a duo and then part of a bluegrass band, and we busked all over the
Oh,
city outside of subway stations and street corners. And that was a great chapter of my life. And then that brought me to recording my own solo project. And yeah, I just really, the little Nina in me that always wanted to be a singer. This was the time, from the time I was 2012 to 2018, letting those dreams live. And I always, that quote, the artist's role is to make the revolution irresistible. I feel like that's a part of my soul code. And so the responsibility to have a microphone in front of my mouth and be sharing different themes and messages, I always felt like I had a responsibility to the audience to feed nutritious, audible bites to them, encode messages that were affirming and empowering, and also challenged systems that I don't feel truly have humanity's thriving in the best interest, or have humanity's thriving as their best interest. And so that piece of my artistry put was the catalyst to start singing at different women's conferences and tech conferences, ironically, and spaces where there were different minds thinking about bigger ideas. And I'm really grateful. That's still one of the spaces I love to exist in, is when there's a lot of cerebral information swirling, interjecting some music that kind of puts an accentuation on the themes that are being discussed on a high level.
yeah. I was listening to your SoundCloud. It was like I think it was like a few days after we met, or maybe a couple days. And I loved May We See Love. It was so beautiful. And I feel like when you were
Thank
just saying
you.
now that you love to put these messages, it's just such a nourishing, comforting, expansive, warm and fuzzy, just like, oh, feeling good song, like a hug. And the lyrics,
Yeah.
yeah, I write a lot. And so lyrics, words, they hit me very, very deeply. And in the earlier part of my life, I was really into not listening to the lyrics, just listening to the beat. And so subconsciously, you don't even realize what you're putting into your brain. And then later on, when you
Right.
become more aware, you go back, you listen to one of your favorite tracks, and you're like, oh my God, that's terrible. I didn't realize it was saying that, and so this intentional choice of words, and words that have a message of love. What a beautiful gift to share with the world. It's a great song.
Thank you so much. Thank you so much. I was exploring your SoundCloud too, and I can confirm that you do pay attention to lyrics, and your songs are beautiful and intentionally written too. So thank you.
Thank you. So when did you record that one? May We See Love.
Yes, that was 2017,
Okay.
2018.
So right
Yeah,
as you
and
were
it,
like going into that transition.
right as that transition from San Francisco to Los Angeles, and a sister and artist that I just adore, Lizzie Jeff. She heard that song in 2021, and it was right at the time of her aunt's passing. And she invited me to sing it at the service for her aunt. And after we collaborated on re-releasing it, and she has a beautiful verse in tribute to the aunt that acted as like a second parent to her. And so that song took on new life a couple years back, and it's on Spotify now. And we shifted it to "May We See Love," and I just love her contribution to the track and like the soul that she poured into it, and the meaning just got amplified. So I love music for that purpose too. Like it's forever expanding, and it's like puzzle pieces that can continue to grow a whole new picture.
Yeah. So
Mm.
where does Soul Jam? When did you start doing that in LA?
I started doing that in LA. Yeah. It, essentially, Soul Jam existed as the space that I wanted as a musician, kind of born from a lot of my searching different open mics and wanting community around my artistry, but not quite knowing how to find it. And so Soul Jam was my call out to local musicians and creatives in Los Angeles to have a space that was a safe space, space that was non-judgmental, and an invitation to their emerging expressions, whether it was a business idea, whether it was something they're working on musically or a speech they're about to give. It was a safe space where they could practice sharing their work with a group and also network with other creatives to share resources and uh, grow whatever idea seeds they were in the process of birthing. And the few years that I hosted these spaces, at the end we'd always have these like group jam moments where all the musicians who brought their instruments, we just, if there was like a theme we were talking about, we just riff on the theme, and then like a song would be born in the moment. And this, time from 2018 to, the pandemic obviously kind of shut down in-person gatherings for a minute. But that those gatherings were some of the most joyful experiences of my adult life by far, by far.
Yeah. When I first read about it on your website, I was like, "Hmm, I want to be part of this." And for the
Yeah.
same reasons, to find community, to have that space. And I love that it's not just musical, like you said. I mean, it's anything that comes from your soul, right?
Yeah.
That's why it's Soul Jam. And so if it's within you and it's something that you want to share, I'm like, everybody has something that they want to share, but they can't
Yes.
always find somebody to listen, and to listen, to really listen, so to create that space where people can be listened to.
Mm.
It, especially if your light is shining very dimly or it's almost put out. It's almost like,
Right.
the candle, everyone else's light is kind of bringing yours back to life, and you feel seen, you feel heard. It just that it's such a healing space. So, yeah, when I saw it, I was like, part of this.
I'm claiming one day
Yeah.
that you will be, and maybe we co-create that space at a retreat that is formed from
Yes.
retreatbuilder.com, like, yes.
I think that would be a great activity for a retreat, because a lot of times people go and they have these things within them and they're hidden, or, they don't talk about it, or they're shy or whatever. But you create the space for people to just, I think that would be a great exercise. Like, what do you have to
Mm.
share? And just share it. And the retreat spaces are, for the most part, really safe,
Right.
ceremonial, sacred, holding,
Invitations
like you
for
were talking about.
vulnerability.
Yes.
Hmm. Right. And to your
And you haven't
point,
done that
yeah.
at a
You
retreat yet?
know, the first time I brought Soul Jam to a retreat was earlier this year.
Oh,
The dear sister Carlene, who was the bridge of connection to you,
yeah.
she hosted the Wild Women Retreat in June, at the end of May, beginning of June this year. And this is the first time Soul Jam was brought to like specifically a retreat space. And it was fabulous. It was fabulous. And there's been a cool momentum of building with some of the women that were in that. And the next space, from that space, I connected with a woman, Tracy, who heads up Athena International nonprofit. And they're, for the first time, they're setting sail on a cruise at the beginning of January. And we're bringing Soul Jam to the cruise for the women
Wow.
leaders on the ship. And so, yeah, there's a expansion, and um, yeah, grateful for being able to like breathe life into this Soul Jam space again, because I love it and
Mhm.
I love seeing people benefit from
Yeah. And
it.
do you help with voice activation within Soul Jam, or is that something separate?
Yeah, there are some aspects of the voice activation coaching that I weave into Soul Jam, specifically getting curious about some of the narratives that exist around our voice, around our singing and our speaking. And one of the prompts is to stay curious and to stay playful with it. Um, not to get overly serious about the process, because we're going to mess up and we're going to sound funny. And also, judgment and perfectionism exists enough in the world. Like, this is a space where they can sit right outside the door. Um, but, you know, a big part of the vocal activation sessions are identifying when you think about singing in front of a group, or if you put yourself on stage and you're about to give a speech, you're about to sing, or even just sing in front of some friends. What are the immediate stories that come up in your brain? And that's such great information. So we just open up space to write down those stories, um, to look at them, to repeat them, to yeah, and then change them ultimately to shift, right affirmations that counter those narratives. So what would be the positive version? Nobody likes it when I sing. My singing is such a gift to anyone in earshot. Rewriting the narratives, going through a ceremonial process of burning the old stories, literally burning them, and retraining our mind to be our own best friend.
Yeah. And how does that, have you noticed maybe some people who don't sing,
Mhm.
but they still want to activate their voice to speak up
Mhm.
for themselves or to
Mhm.
speak up for certain things that they believe in?
Mhm. Yeah, when I started vocal activation, it was very much rooted in speaking your truth, speaking the voice of your soul. And so, with anything, sometimes that 0 to 1 is the hardest step. It's the hardest chasm to cross. And so once you've shown yourself that you can cross it one time, and you see the results of, you know, perhaps if you spent a lifetime people pleasing or not speaking your truth, and the visceral reaction afterwards, you feel shut down, you feel small, you're overthinking the conversation in your head hours afterwards, and you're just defeated and deflated. And you show yourself one time what it feels like to make a different choice, to speak your truth, whether that's actually, I don't agree with you and I'm going to do things this way, whatever scenario it is for you, to speak up what your soul is actually telling you. And you tap into how you feel afterwards. You tap into the visceral feeling of your body, what's going on in your mind. It's going to feel uncomfortable, but it's going to feel different than it's felt before. And I find that if people give themselves the opportunity to stand in that and feel that other kind of uncomfortable that comes with speaking your truth, it's a doorway to practice that more and feel more comfortable, because ultimately it feels so much better than not speaking your truth, or, shrinking yourself, making yourself small. Um, and our body knows, like Abraham Hicks, like our emotional indicator system is there as a GPS. Like, okay, this feels good. Keep moving this way. This feels worse. Maybe don't do that so much. And these built-in intelligence systems are so cool, and we're so lucky to have them. And so it's like, realigning with them so they're working with us instead of against us.
Yeah, I resonate with that deeply because I think a lot of times our barometer is off because it's still operating from a trauma response instead of,
Precisely.
being in the moment. And like The Body Keeps the Score, that book was so eye-opening for me. Just if you watch, I mean, forget other people, but if you watch yourself in any moment, like when you're uncomfortable, yes, there's a feeling in the body, but then there's also a posture that your body, a shape it starts to make. Like maybe it's this, or maybe it's like all of a sudden like crossing the arms and crossing the legs, and just notice that and to understand like, why am I doing that? Where is that coming from? Is there actual danger, or is this just something that I've been holding on to from a long time? And I think many times those things are what prevent us from speaking, because like you said, we're thinking my body's telling me no, but it's telling you no from because it's replaying something from back then. It's not no now. Now you're fine.
Now you're fine. Right. Right. You're absolutely right. And that's why it's important to identify the narratives that are playing. So it's like you create that separation to see, oh, I'm acting this way because this is what my brain is telling me, but this isn't actually true. This isn't actually accurate. And yeah, I get to have a new response based on accurate information that I am actively encoding from this moment right here, right now.
Exactly. And I'm thinking that also, I mean, just making sound, just to whatever it is, get it out of the body, move it,
Yeah.
whether it's a scream, whether it's a song, whether it's just, I don't know, when like, get it out.
You get it. You get it.
Yeah.
You get it.
Yeah. Hey,
That's
I
the
want to
the
ask you a
aspect of.
question.
Oh yeah, go ahead.
Oh, sorry, go ahead.
I was just gonna say the aspect of keeping it like curious and like childlike is so important in this process, because if we're afraid to make a funny face or a funny noise, like we can't get free. And a deep part of that process is like, letting ourselves look weird, making like ooh sounds that like are weird, right? But like
Yeah.
as a kid, we didn't care. And part of that reclamation of our voice is like getting back in touch with the kid that didn't care how they sounded or how they looked. They were just fucking
Free.
free. Yeah.
Yes. They were
And
free.
I wish that freedom for every single body, because there's nothing that money can buy that can replace that
No,
or
you can have a
substitute for
lot of
that.
it and still be very not free. So, no, I cannot buy
Mm-hmm.
that kind of freedom. So I was going to
Mm-hmm.
ask you because it's, it feels, I don't know that I would say obvious, but I would assume that a lot of women have issues around this, about speaking up and speaking their truth and things like that. But I wanted to know, have you ever worked with men around needing to speak up and use their voice?
Mm. I have. I worked with a trans man who had a really interesting journey of feeling more emboldened in their voice, in their presence, um, and now finding new ways to still share like that emotional intelligence and assertiveness, but in new spaces. And that was a really cool experience with the student. And I've worked with a few other men specifically that used to sing as kids, and then society and parents just put the kibosh on that, and they wanted to, reclaim that aspect for themselves. I haven't specifically worked with a man who solely comes to me because they want to uh, speak up more, or get in touch with their like speaking truths more.
Okay. So it's
I'm
more
sure
like
they
them wanting
exist.
to get in touch with the feminine expression through song of it.
Correct. Correct.
Okay. That's interesting.
Mhm. Sure. For sure. That's a good question. Yeah, it is interesting.
Well, is it? I don't like to leave out the guys, like I know as
Totally.
women we go through a lot, but I think it's easy to overlook that men might go through a lot in different ways. And I like to ask these questions to
Absolutely.
learn more about maybe the men that are not always being highlighted, because usually there's a
Right.
certain type of man that's being highlighted. But what about the other men that exist in the world that maybe have trouble speaking up or maybe want to reconnect with their voice? And so it's good to know that they
Right.
have a space where they can do that too if they want to, and it's safe for them.
Absolutely. Absolutely. And like this aspect of integration, I think is what collectively we're moving towards, like call it integration or divine union or like balance, like it may be part of the masculine journey at this time to remember their creative gifts. So there can be like a holistic sense of thriving within the masculine, and for the feminine, that the journey may be more of that assertive voice that needs a space now, and
Yeah.
um, not to largely generalize the two groups. Um, but yeah, we're at an interesting point in time where integration feels like where we're all moving towards, and how we do that as individuals and how we do that together is an endlessly fascinating space that I like to
Yeah.
explore.
I love how you said the integration of the masculine and the feminine. And I mean,
For sure.
I'm going to use this as an example because it's the only example I know. But like when I think about, so my husband,
For sure.
when we first met, I told him, you know what I love about you? Because he's not like, he's not a stereotypical man. He's very
Lucky
balanced in
you.
his masculine. Yeah. Well, it took me a long time. It took me long enough. Uh, yeah, it took me a few tries, but finally, I told him, you're more of a man than most of the
Mm.
men, like all of the men put together that I've ever met, because
Oh,
of the feminine aspect that he so freely, like there's balance, and it's very
wow.
attractive. And I'm not even talking about just,
Wow.
sexual. I mean, like it's attractive to see a whole human being that can fully express
Oh.
themselves in the masculine and the feminine. And I even went through this
Mm.
thing where I was trying to move away from like looking so feminine, and I wanted to embrace this more masculine aspect of myself. And I can feel with that balance, that I can be soft and I can be nurturing, but I can also, be a little
Mm.
more rough around the edges. If, I don't always have to be tied up in a little bow.
Right. Oh God, I'm so happy that that's been a space of like expansion for you both and attraction.
Yeah.
When you said that's really attractive in him, I was literally got the visual of a magnet, and how like, of course, when someone is embodying the full spectrum of who they are, it's like the magnet that they are literally like attracts more, because there's no short circuiting. You're like, one end is really sticky, but the other one is like
Yeah.
inactive. Uh,
Exactly. That's a great way to put
Traction.
it. I
whole
love
whole
that.
humans all online. I'm so glad you two found each other
Exactly.
and you get to play in this life in that like embodiment of the fullness of who you both are. That's so cool.
Me too. Thank you. Thank you.
Yeah. And you
So
build together too, which is it's like
we do.
feels like your relationship is very much in service of that which is larger than you two.
You want to hear something crazy? So when I
Always.
pulled our natal chart,
Usually I'll say,
my natal, let's say my natal chart is like this, and his is like
mhm.
this. I'm a Virgo, Aquarius rising, and he's an Aquarius Virgo rising. It's insane.
Whoa.
Yeah, pretty cool.
Complimentary. That's very
Hmm.
cool. And from what you told me of what the work you're doing together, and like you're both really in it and birthing something new, uh, that'll be in service of so many people's consciousness
Yes.
expansion, connection, and community. It's like, yes, this is the purpose of divine union, to serve the larger whole, to be fully embodied unto themselves, and to come together to create something that is bigger than you both.
Yes. Yes. That's amazing. I send
Well
it up.
done. Well
Sending it up
done.
to
You're
the
doing
universe.
it. Cheers and
Yeah, I'm doing it.
congratulations. Mhm.
So what's your vision for the future, and especially in retreats? Like, what do you hope to create yourself in
Mm.
this space?
Mm. You know, I my vision for the future, we were talking a little bit offline before we jumped on, and I forever will, until there's like a deep a healing and a responsibility for the energy that each one of us brings, the world that each one of us is. I will always hope for a future that has a wider door open to the possibility of healing for every individual human, and a vulnerability to embrace the healing that gets to happen, so people can walk in their fullness, in their joy, in their love, unobstructed by wounding and traumas and anger and pain and hurt and heartbreak. Um, I specifically wish for more doors open to the masculine, into safe spaces where they can um, really face themselves and um, put on the altar all that is not serving their most expanded, thriving, loving self, and rediscover the joyful being within that more often seeks harmony than war. Uh,
Mm.
and you know, for the feminine, I have prayers and visions of a reclamation of the power and presence and wisdom and intuitive knowledge that exists in the collective of feminine, and using that in a unified uh, way to serve planet, to serve the animals here, to serve the environments that we're in, and to incorporate that wisdom and intuition in the systems and organizations and corporations and structures that are functioning at a certain level of consciousness that could really use an injection of feminine creativity and wisdom to make sure that they're win-win systems and not win-lose systems.
Mm. That's beautiful. Thank you for sharing that.
For
I
sure.
also I'm plus twoing me too for your prayer. Like I'm just,
Hmm.
yeah. putting my money on that. That sounds like a really great world to live in. And I was thinking about, I had a conversation with a chef that I'm going to be speaking with soon.
Mm.
Amazing guy. He does luxury safari retreats, and like he's in Zimbabwe. It's great.
Wow. Wow.
And he was telling me, yeah, that retreat, well, at least the context that he was sharing it, he was talking about like in war, you retreat, and you mentioned war, war and harmony, but retreating to kind of like regroup before you go back out there. And I
Mm.
think in a lot of ways, there are so many women's retreats doing that to strengthen the bond between women, to remind themselves of who they are, um, to unite as far as what they want to make happen in the world. And there have been more men's retreats coming, like popping out of I've been seeing more and more of it. And a lot of talk
Mhm.
about this divine masculine. And so I think your prayer is kind of like a prophecy that is beginning.
Mm. Mm. Maybe one that in our lifetimes we won't see, but we can fan the flames of and water the seeds of, and pray and hold the vision that it takes root in the generations to come.
Oh, yes. Well, thank you, my friend. Thank you, Nina, for being here and sharing.
Mhm. Thank you so much for creating this space and inviting this level of intentional conversation and play and exploration. Very much appreciated.